Believe it or not, back in 2002, a divorce case completely rewrote the law for thousands of couples in India, and the whole thing started over a dispute of just 500 rupees. This is the story of how that single ruling is still shaping lives, even 2 decades later. Let's get into it.
So it really gets to the heart of a huge question, right? When a marriage ends and both partners are perfectly capable of earning a living, what's actually fair when it comes to financial support? Well, this one case, Kumaresan versus Aswathi, gives us a really powerful and, for some, a pretty controversial answer.
All right, so let's set the stage and meet the couple at the center of this modern legal dilemma.
Okay, so picture this. The year is 2002, and we're at the Madras High Court. We've got our 2 key players, Kumaresan, the husband, and Aswathi, the wife. They're right in the thick of a divorce, and the big sticking point is something called interim alimony. Basically, that's just temporary financial support that one person pays the other while the whole case is being sorted out.
Now here's what makes this whole story so wild. The amount they were fighting over, just 500 rupees a month. That's it! So you know right away, this was never about the money. This was a battle over a much bigger principle.
And this is where things get, well, a little weird. It almost turns into a legal mystery, and it all revolves around one single, really questionable piece of paper.
Kumaresan's argument was pretty straightforward. He basically said, hey, I shouldn't have to pay her anything because she's secretly got a job. He claimed that Aswathi was working at a place called Cutty Crafts and that she was making 4,500 rupees a month. Now, keep in mind, that's 9 times what she was asking him for.
So you're thinking, okay, big claim. What's the proof? Well, get this. His only evidence was a single photocopy, an unverified Xerox copy of some supposed employment documents. No original, no pay stub, no one to back it up. Just a Xerox. I mean, how on earth is a court supposed to make a ruling based on that?
But here's the thing. The court's decision went way beyond just dealing with that flimsy Xerox. They used this case as a chance to lay down a huge, groundbreaking legal principle that people will be talking about for years.
Okay, so first, a quick legal breakdown so we're all on the same page. This interim maintenance thing we're talking about, its whole purpose is to be a safety net. It's temporary cash to make sure that while the divorce is dragging on, neither person is left completely high and dry.
But the judge in this case, Justice Venkachalamurthy, he took a really strict look at this law. He basically said, look, the number one condition here is that the person asking for money has to show they don't have sufficient independent income. It's not a given. It's not automatic. If you can support yourself even basically, you're not getting it. Full stop.
And this is where the court really dropped the hammer with a now famous line. Citing an older case, the judge said that this law is not meant to create an army of idle persons. What a phrase, right? That idea became the absolute heart of the ruling. The law is there to help people who genuinely can't support themselves, not people who just don't want to. So, that set up this brand new standard, the sufficient income test. But what does that even mean? What's the magic number? How much is sufficient?
Well, the court didn't just leave it hanging. They laid out a really practical 3-part test. Sufficient income, they said, isn't about being rich or living in the lap of luxury. It's much simpler. It just means having enough money to cover your basic needs, to avoid real hardship, and to live with some dignity while you're going through all the legal stuff.
And here's the final twist in their specific story. The court actually kicked the case back downstairs, basically saying, you need better proof than a crummy Xerox copy. But honestly, by then it didn't even matter. The real verdict was already in. The principle was set in stone, and it made one thing crystal clear. If Kumaresan could prove his wife was earning that 4,500 rupees, she wouldn't get a single rupee from him.
And that's why, in the end, what happened to Kumaresan and Aswathi almost became a footnote. What really mattered was the massive ripple effect this one ruling had on family law all across India for the next 2 decades.
Just take a look at this timeline. You can really see how this idea took hold. It started brewing back in 2000, but it was our 2002 Kumaresan case that really made it the law of the land. And right away, just a year later, you see another case applying the Kumaresan principle. Fast forward all the way to recent times, and you've got major rulings still backing up that core idea.
Now, the law didn't just stop there. It got a little smarter over time. The Supreme Court eventually stepped in with a really important tweak. They clarified that you have to prove someone has actual income. You can't just stand there and say, well, my ex is qualified, they could be making a ton of money.
Now, you have to show they are actually earning it. That was a huge change to prevent pure speculation from denying someone support. Okay, so let's put a bow on this. What does this all mean for us today? What are the big lessons from this one case that are still super relevant for anyone navigating a divorce?
All right, let's break down the key takeaways. First and foremost, temporary support isn't automatic. It's totally based on need. Second, if you have what the court considers a sufficient income to get by, you're just not eligible. Third, the whole point of this rule is to push for financial self-reliance from both people. Fourth, and this is important, it's totally gender neutral. It applies just as much to husbands as it does to wives. And finally, the big one. It's all about what someone is actually earning, not their potential to earn.
And that really leaves us with a final, pretty tough question to chew on. The Kumaresan ruling is all about self-reliance, which, sounds great in our modern world. But it also brings up a much deeper issue, doesn't it? How does the law balance that idea with the reality that one spouse might have spent years, maybe decades, out of the workforce to support the other person's career? What about that economic sacrifice? It's a really delicate balancing act, and it's something the courts are still trying to get right to this very day.